Yes, hello everyone. Welcome back to On Clay. It is the start of Championship 2025. Liam White is joining me from the Limerick Voice. Liam, the championship well up and running now after this weekend. I'm absolutely buzzing to get into the first weekend review of the championship season. How are you keeping, my man? Thanks for jumping on.
Not too bad, yeah. Thanks for having me on again. On the way back, a sobering experience from Páirc Uí Chaoimh, I have to say, after being at the two league finals. Yeah, no, you know it's summertime when it's still bright at 8 o'clock and championship is starting. There's a good feel factor around, I suppose, most counties. And it was a great weekend for all the games to be played. There was beautiful sunshine everywhere, and of course, lads getting pissed in pubs beforehand and drinking in styles and everything. It's a great weekend for it. So yeah, no, looking forward to jumping on.
Yeah, certainly. It feels like championship when you start to see drunk fans walking towards stadiums and stuff like that. That's kind of one of the things that would be in the starter packs. Brian O'Riordan and Johnny Barrett are leading the way in terms of the live comments, guys. You'll see across the ticker there at the bottom if you are new on Cluiche. If you want to throw anything into the live chat, please let me know. Ask any questions, give me your highlights of the weekend review show. We're no experts, we're not client testers, but we love chatting about it. We love having a good discussion about the current state of affairs in the GAA. Brian O'Riordan leading the way. He says, I hear you are on to the Leinster Council to ask them to bring the quarter and semis outside of Croke Park. Well, maybe, Brian, maybe. He says, joking aside, the correct decision has been made. Low attendances in a very surreal Croke Park, better atmosphere, and fully to capacity and big Dublin supporters. A welcome investment. Yeah, I genuinely think here as well. Here, did you get my message in relation to the bus? Even not yet, Brian. To be honest, I'm a terrible man for the social media, but I will have a look. Johnny here as well says all the Connacht GA matches are behind the paywall for the first year. Yeah, not a big fan of that. And this is unclear. Thank you for not being behind the paywall. I'll never be behind the paywall, Johnny. Don't worry about that. Never ever. I'm not a fan of the old paywalls. But yeah, there's the comments. That sets the stage. Liam, in general, we're going to start off up in Ulster, and we're going to run through the Ulster, then Connacht, then Leinster, and then Munster, and then we're going to run through the Alliance Hurling League Finals. Just for a side note as well, guys, anybody who wants to watch live GAA, New York and Galway actually is live. So I'd say have that on, but maybe have us on your second screen there if you don't mind. Liam, we're going to jump in with the game that caught everybody's attention heading into this weekend. Donegal 125, Derry 115 in Ballybofey. Last year, it grabbed all the headlines when Donegal smashed the aura that surrounded Derry this time last year after they beat Dublin in that league final. The 4 goals snatched all the headlines. This year, Donegal were the favourites going into this game, and they delivered a 10-point victory. What did you make of this?
Yeah, even listening to Aaron's podcast before I came on Gaelic Games Fan TV, he kind of said Donegal were in cruise control sort of throughout the game. There wasn't too many worries that they weren't ever going to win the game, and I kind of felt like that was the opinions of a lot of people going into this game, with the way Derry performed in the league in comparison to how Donegal, I suppose, started the league in comparison to how they ended the league, which was disastrous. And I suppose we'd all asked the question, did Jim McGuinness have a master plan, a master stroke prepared for the championship? And I mean, a 10-point victory, and let's be honest, they probably were in second gear at best, realistically. They'll have a tougher test to come now against Monaghan in the next round in Ulster. So, but yeah, no, they led by 7 at half time. Derry had cut the lead back, but I suppose there was never any real trouble of Donegal, I suppose, losing out in this game. They had Paddy McBrearty back, Michael Murphy was playing, or McFadden was thrown in from the start. Paddy McBrearty finished with 7 points. I mean, he's one of the best footballers I've genuinely ever seen. He'd be, when he's retired, he'll be up there with the likes of Michael Murphy. People will be trying to compare the two of them. One of the best left foot, alongside Clifford, I reckon he probably has the best left foot in Ireland. Genuinely, he's just so accurate. He can curl the ball so well. I dread to be any cornerback having to be told you're marking him any weekend. It wouldn't be a fun experience. And as well, Darrow Whale as well. Scoring 1-4, 2 excellent 2-pointers as well. A great goal as well, which was actually, I believe it was a start by Michael Murphy, or I think it was the point that was scored before that. And it was a great response as well to Derry getting their opening goal through Higgins as well on his, I believe it was his championship debut. So, yeah, no, a fantastic win for Donegal, I have to say. They're up and running. They've kind of put the defeats to Mayo and the hammerings to Galway to one side now, and they can push forward now. And they'll they're going away to Monaghan, which is going to be a very, very tricky battle. I mean, we saw how good Monaghan were in the Alliance League in Division 2. You know, and we saw how much they battered Roscommon realistically in the Division 2 final. So, but they won't fear Donegal either. You know, they'll see some frailties in that team. They'll certainly feel like with a home crowd as well, they could get at them. So, but yeah, no, kind of as I expected, Donegal well on top, Derry just simply not at the races, and I'd be a small bit concerned for them heading into the group stages in the knockout rounds. I think they could be in for a tough couple of months.
Yeah, I think it could be tough. It's given the potential similar pattern to how last year's season went for Derry if they don't turn the ship quite quickly. But then again, you have to take into account who they're playing against. They're playing against a really, really good Donegal team. And like when the Donegal team sheet came in, you have a look at the names on it, like Patrick McBrearty, who scored 7 points, Michael Murphy, who started this game, got 2 points, Shane O'Donnell, 2 points, Conor O'Donnell, 2 points, Kieran Thompson, Patter Mogan, Ryan McHugh, Kieran Moore, Brendan McCall, fullback, Quayla McGonigal at 6, Sean Patton in goal. Like they have a really, really stacked team, Donegal. And that's without even taking into account the likes of Oisin Gallen, the likes of Jamie Brennan. Like, by God, they are really, really strong. And Darrow Boyle is a player who has really flown under the radar throughout this league campaign in terms of the form that he's been in and in terms of the expert that he has become at kicking the 2-pointers. We saw he kicked 2 of them in this game, brilliantly executed. He has it down to a fine art. A lot of people will talk about the Shane Walshes in this world, but Darrow Boyle is just as good as nailing the 2-pointers. He is effortless in how he does it. He's a real, real weapon for Donegal this season in the championship, and his goal brilliantly taken. He was a massive weapon for Donegal in this victory today. And for Jim McGuinness, a 10-point win going into play against Monaghan now. As you mentioned, Monaghan's attack was unreal throughout the league campaign. How do you see them going in against Monaghan in the next round?
I suppose with the attack that they have, and I mean, even just when you look at Donegal's squad, the fact that you can leave the likes of Oisin Gallen and Niall O'Donnell, the likes of them on the bench, is quite frightening. You know, and when you need like if they're going to be left on the bench the next stage, you know, just kind of just looking ahead. If you were to leave the likes of them on the bench, or if you were to drop Michael Murphy, or if you were to, you know, drop Conor O'Donnell or something like that, like the impact that they would make off the bench is scary, to be honest with you. Or even Mark Curran as well. So yeah, no, I think they'll certainly fancy their chances. I mean, I expect Donegal to go far this year. I would not be surprised if they did end up in the All-Ireland final. You know, I think I would still rank them, Galway, and I would say Kerry as the top 3 teams that will look to secure All-Ireland glory this year. I mean, and even in Ulster, it's extremely tough. I mean, Monaghan, Donegal, Tyrone, Armagh, realistically for me, are the 4 teams that will aim to win it. Down will, you know, they'll give it socks, but I just don't think they have enough quality about them to be able to deal with teams like that. But no, it should be an interesting battle, and especially with it being, it's in Clones, I believe, isn't it? It's you know, which is going to be probably a sellout, you know, because you're bringing not only the Ulster champions, but you're bringing one of the favourites for the All-Ireland in, and after the season that Monaghan have had so far, a lot of their fans will want to travel out and watch them play as well. So no, it should be a cracking game. But what's impressive is for Donegal to score 125 as well. It's a fantastic return, especially on the first day of championship. You know, and realistically, conceding 115 now in football isn't too bad considering the 2-pointers. You know, you're thinking, even seeing earlier today, like when Carlo scored 19 points against Meath and they lost, like last year or something like that would have won you plenty of games. So it kind of shows that conceding 115 isn't too bad in respect of scoring 125. For Derry, I mean, look, Derry still have a lot of great players. You have your Lachlan Murrays, you have your Shane McGuiggans, you have your Conor Glasses, Dan Higgins had a good game today as well, Ethan Doherty's, but they're just not gelling as a unit at the moment. You know, they just don't seem to be. They're ever since that league final against Dublin last year, just nothing seems to be going right for them. And yeah, I think they could be in for, like I said, a real tough couple of months.
Yeah, I think when you look at the start of the game, they started the game quite well. By 25 minutes, it was 5 points each after Shane McGuigan's free. And for Donegal, I think they did a lot of the damage to Derry in the period from the 25th minute up until half time, because at 25 minutes, Derry were level with them after McGuigan's free. Then Michael Murphy scored. Then Darrell Boyle got a 2-pointer. Then McBrearty scored. And then Darrell Boyle got his second 2-pointer. All of a sudden, it's 11-5. Dan Higgins obviously pulls the goal back for Derry, but then Donegal respond in kind with Conor O'Donnell and then Darrell Boyle's goal on the stroke of half-time. They go in 7 points clear. That leaves Derry with a lot to do to come back into the game. And ultimately in the second half, for whatever Derry threw at them, Donegal always responded in kind. And by the 49th minute, Finbar O'Reilly's point, they were 9 points clear, 119 to 110. And I just feel like Derry, to me, showed a similar sign than what they did in the Mayo game in the league, that they were kind of willing to fight, but once it was really bad, like once Donegal got the run on them and it was like they're going to have to throw the kitchen sink and more at them, it kind of came undone at the end, slightly. I wouldn't say that they have no fight, they do, but they don't strike me as the absolutely, thoroughly determined team that they were in the championship in 2023 and in 2024 in the league last season. Brian here says Derry have a lot of work to do. They have really come back a long way. Donegal look very strong. Donegal, Galway, Armagh, Dublin and Kerry to be in the mix. I would agree with that. And Sam says here, Derry still have time to build. Wouldn't write them off just yet. That's a very good point, Sam. I think it's important to remember who Derry were playing. They were playing against a very, very good Donegal team who were tipped to win. Derry were underdogs in this game and they had just been relegated from the Allianz League without picking up a win. They still have really, really good players. They still have the backbone of that team that a lot of people thought could win the All-Ireland last year. So do not write them off, but I do think they have a long way to go in terms of coming back. Donegal, on the other hand, I would be extremely positive, extremely ambitious, and extremely excited about what is to come in 2025 under McGuinness. Rudders 38 here. New man on the channel, Rudders. Good to have you. He says, not sure about Mark can tackle players for 4 meters just catching the ball and severe punishment for me. I have seen that. It happened in the Kildare and Offaly game in the league final. I think it was Callum Bolton catched it and just booted it off an Offaly player who couldn't get out of the way. And he ended up getting the free and moved forward. So, yeah, maybe a little bit of a tweak to made there. But apart from that, the FRC have done a terrific job. If you look at the score lines across the board, it's been a lot better. Brian Redknapp says, plenty of time for Derry to recover. They played very strong and hungry Donegal. Then Johnny says, Kerry will win the All-Ireland. They have the best centre of excellence located in Kearns. Kerry are the best prepared team in Gaelic football. And they are the league champions as well. So you cannot ever write off Kerry. Also, we are going to touch really quickly here because I posted about it on Cluiche, but it would not be enough to not say the name of the legend himself, who unfortunately passed away. Brian says it here. This week is a very sad week. The icon legend Mick O'Dwyer sadly passed away. The joy and success he brought to Kildare and Laois was outstanding. We will never see the likes of him again. Very, very sad. Certainly, when you look at Mick O'Dwyer, when you look at managers and just people who had such impacts on the GAA in every corner of the country, Mick O'Dwyer's name will go down in history. Like, I mean, that team that he had with Kerry, the 8 All-Irelands that he won, the 4 in a row, that's arguably the greatest team of all time that he had with Mikey Sheehy, with Jack O'Shea, with John Egan. Like, they are just etched in stone, that team. And Mick O'Dwyer, what he did with them as a player and as a manager, what he did with Kildare, what he did with Laois, what he did with Clare, what he did with Wicklow winning the Tommy Murphy Cup. Like, he just is a legend, and he is a gentleman as well. Everybody that meets him, everybody that talks to him, everybody that spoke to him, they all leave with this kind of glow that, like, I met Micko. And yeah, simply put here by Rudders, just as what a legend. I mean, he is a legend. And rest in peace, Mick O'Dwyer. And absolutely thoughts and prayers go out to anybody who was impacted by his passing, and his family, his friends. May this absolute legend, Mick O'Dwyer, rest in peace. Name your thoughts if you're still with me, because you've kind of fuzzed up a bit.
Sorry, I didn't hear what you said there at the end.
I was just saying your thoughts, Mick O'Dwyer. I said, rest in peace, Mick O'Dwyer. True legend of Gaelic games.
Yeah. Sorry, no, just connection there. I was on Matthew's podcast the other night on the Gaelic Statsman, and he was asking me where would I rank Miko in terms of managers in the history of just GEA in general. I think in terms of Gaelic football, he's the best ever, and there's no denying that. I think when it comes to GEA, like hurling and Gaelic football, you're ranking him up there with the likes of Brian Cody, with your Jim Gavins, with your Mickey Harts, all these great men in the past. But I think he tops them all. I think, like you said, that Kerry team that won 4 in a row, obviously were stopped from doing the 5 in a row, but then to come back and win 3 in a row after that, like he inherited a fantastic squad, but he just made them a special cohesive unit, and what he achieved with them. But I think even his work with Kildare and Laois and even Wicklow, even in a way, I think he'll have better legacies for that than his work with Kerry, because in Kerry you'd almost be expected to win stuff, but with Kildare, to win a Leinster title, to reach an All-Ireland final, to win a Leinster title with Laois, to win the Tommy Murphy Cup with Wicklow, took Clare in 2013. Like, he had some fabulous days with them, and he'll be well regarded and well respected for generations to come. And I mean, on top of that, to win, people forget how much of a good player he was as well. To win 4 All-Irelands as a player is still like that. Any person would be happy with that, let alone winning for further 8 as a manager. So yeah, no, he's an absolute legend. He is simply Mr. Kerry. He just could not have been from anywhere else. His club, Waterville, they had a touching tribute yesterday. There was a lovely photo of his entire family beside his statue, which was really beautiful sight to see. Marty Morrissey spoke well at his funeral. So yeah, no, a great man. And his documentary, I have to say, was probably the best I've ever seen made by RTE, certainly from a sporting documentary, and I've seen a lot of them. Like, it was well made, it was top notch, and it gave us a real insight into his life. And he just seemed like an absolute gentleman. Shame I never got to meet him in person or anything, but he's an absolute legend, and rightfully has a statue down in Kerry. And condolences to his entire family.
Yeah, well said. I'd like to echo that as well. Just like, when you look at the legacy that Mick O'Dwyer leaves behind, 4 All-Irelands as a player, 8 All-Irelands as a manager, those Kerry teams that he had, they changed the game of Gaelic football. Players like Jack O'Shea, Mikey Sheehy, John Egan, Pat Spillane, and you see even Pat Spillane talking about him, and he's still getting emotional about him because of the man that Mick O'Dwyer was, as well as the manager, as well as the player. He's just an unbelievable figure in the history of Gaelic games. His name is etched in stone. He is one of the greatest people to ever be in Gaelic games, as well as one of the greatest players, managers, and contributors to the game that we currently have today. And that Kerry team, you could argue, is the most important team in Gaelic football history. Like, the way that they changed the game, the rivalry that they had with Dublin in the 70s, and then doing the 4 in a row, and just the mystique that they had, the aura that they had. It was just, very likely the greatest team of all time. Like, you can make your arguments about, different teams like the Dublin team in the 2010s, but that Kerry team changed the game. And to Miko, for what he did with Kildare as well, taking them to an All-Ireland final, winning Leinster with them, taking Laois to their Leinster title in 2003. You look at all the people that learned from him as well, great managers like Paddy O'Shea, and just, his legacy is just unquestioned. Winning a Tommy Murphy Cup at Wicklow, the work that he did with Clare, and as you said, anybody that met him, anybody that was in his circle, they were all speaking highly of him. They all were delighted that they got to meet Miko. And his documentary on RTE, simply just called Miko, if you get a chance, watch it. It's a really, really good documentary, and it encapsulates really, really well just what a legend Mick O'Dwyer was. And may he rest in peace, and my deepest condolences to his family, to his friends, and anybody affected by his passing. We've comments in here flooding in about Mick O'Dwyer. Johnny says Mick O'Dwyer was considered for the Mayo manager before John Maughan got the job. Could you imagine that in an alternate timeline? Brian O'Riordan says he will be up there with Brian Cody and Jim Gavin. The achievements and success and the work he done in Kildare and Laois will be there with the best. Mick O'Dwyer is the most successful player and manager in GAA history. Brian O'Riordan says to appear in the 1964 final after suffering 2 broken legs was testament to the man himself. And then my friend from Mexico, Yul, he says the road begins. The best comments. Thank you very much, Yul. I'm absolutely buzzing to have you back on the show here. But rest in peace to a legend, and we'll get back into the commentary here. So, the Connacht Senior Football Championship quarter-final. Breathe out, Mayo fans. You've got over the line against Sligo here by 2 goals and 20 points to Sligo's 217 in McHale Park. Now, we can be harsh about this, or we can be kind of forgiving to Mayo. We can say that Mayo beat a Sligo team that took Galway to an inch of their lives last year. Or we can say that Mayo barely got over the line with home advantage against a team that was playing in Division 3 in the league. Which one do you prefer to go with, Liam?
Well, I think the first thing we have to nearly highlight is the fact that I think I mentioned it to Matthew, and you mentioned it as well. Mayo had no 2-pointers in this game. And we did, a lot of us were worried that other than maybe Matty Ruan and Ryan O'Donoghue, who was going to get 2-pointers for Mayo. And it's shown today that there really isn't anybody. And that's a real big concern. Like when you're seeing the likes of Donegal and Kerry, well, maybe not Kerry just as yet, maybe to an extent, but Donegal and Galway and Dublin will have them as well. When you're just seeing that Mayo at the moment don't have an absolute guaranteed two-pointed kicker, it's a small bit of a concern. Now, look, they got the job done, and listen, they'll go into a semi-final. Realistically, you'd have to imagine they'll get past Leitrim, realistically, just given how poor Leitrim have been the entire season and the problems they've had off the field as well. But I can't imagine Kevin McStay will be too pleased after the performance today. I mean, it was 3 points in at half-time, so essentially, Mayo won the first half by 3 points, Sligo drew, and then it was a draw in the second half. They were made work for it. It's as simple as that. But see, I'm not overly surprised because Sligo, for as poor of a start they had in the league in terms of results, they're not a bad team. They've had a lot of really good. They have a lot of really good players in their panel, like Patrick O'Connor, like Spillane. They've a lot of really talented players in their panel. And they've had Colara Strandhill, their club winning a Connacht title recently as well. A lot of good work going on with their under-20s over the last couple of years. So, you got to give Sligo credit. They pushed Mayo. They gave them a great battle. But I think for Mayo, I feel like in a way, did they maybe suffer a bit of a hangover from the Division 1 final because they were very lackluster against Kerry. And it just seemed to really reap into today's game. So, yeah, I'm not sure what to make. I suppose it is the first game of the championship, so I suppose they might just look at it and say, look, job done, we move on. We know we'll have to step up our performance levels for one of Galway or Roscommon, just being realistic for a Connacht's final. But yeah, I would be a small bit concerned. But look, even just positives for them. Aidan O'Shea scored 1-3. He's playing relatively well this year as well. He's working well inside there at corner forward. Darren McHale scored 4 points. Jack Carney scored 2 points. Ryan O'Donoghue scored 1-4. You'd expect Ryan O'Donoghue to perform every day he goes out. So there is positives from that perspective. Fergal Boland scored 2 points coming off the bench. So look, there are some positives, absolutely. But I certainly think McStay has a bit of work cut out for him. I think I'm not totally convinced that we saw the two best teams in the country. Well, aside from Kerry, I don't believe the second best team in the country was playing in the league final last weekend. And if Mayo were to even win Connacht, they'll have to work it out for them.
But I think it's Galway's to lose, in my opinion. I think Mayo or Roscommon are pretty tied, in my opinion, in terms of how likely they are to beat Galway. But I would definitely put Galway as the favourites. Johnny says Mayo have not been the same since the All-Ireland defeat to Tyrone in 2021. That is 4 years ago now. Certainly, I think that All-Ireland final defeat to Tyrone was more deflating because I think with the Dublin All-Ireland finals, it was like, God, you really fell for Mayo because they had such a good team, but they were just up against a Dublin team that was just imperious and you just couldn't beat them. It was like in those games, it felt like Mayo had left everything that they had out on the pitch, whereas the Tyrone game, we'd seen them play better in previous games and it felt more deflating in that one. But that point that you made about the 2 pointers is really, really good because what Sligo showcased is how quickly you can close the gap with the 2 pointers. When Conal Dawson got that last score for Mayo to put them 220 to 113 ahead, all of a sudden Sligo threw an Alan McLaughlin 2-pointer to a Niall Murphy 2-pointer and then Keane Lally's goal. The gap went from being 10 points down to being just 3 points. The way that Sligo just reeled them in. And also on top of that, it's concerning for Mayo that they made it such hard work for themselves. Now, for Kevin McStay, it's not the worst thing in the world, because they've got into the Connacht semi-final. They probably will win that game. And then they're in a Connacht final and they've a lot to work on. So it's not the worst place in the world to be. But if I were him, I'd be quite concerned, A, by how hard they found it to close this game out, and B, the lack of two-pointer threats that they have compared to other teams. We saw in the championship this weekend, Darrell Wheel knocking over two for Donegal. Sligo against Mayo, Niall Murphy, Alan McLaughlin knocking them over, for example. Mayo don't have those threats. They have not crafted them during the league the way that other teams have, the way that Shane Walsh can bang them over for Galway. I'm telling you now, it's going to catch Mayo in a game. They're going to lose a game because the team has kicked more two-pointers than them, and Mayo won't have kicked any because they haven't kicked any throughout the league and now in the first round of the championship. Whereas Sligo, who kicked a few, sliced the gap in half and almost reeled them in going down the home stretch.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think the biggest indication we nearly got was their league game against Galway, where Galway won by 10 points, but the amount of two-pointers they were kicking were outrageous. I think that was, and even their game against Tyrone at home as well, a game finishing 12-10 with these new rules is, I mean, great defensive display, but from an attacking point of view, a real cause for concern, really, especially when you do look at the players that Mayo have in attack as well. Like, they have a lot of dangerous forwards who can hurt you, but I even saw it last week up in Croke Park. They were just very hesitant to take shots outside the arc. You know, they were it was almost like they were reverting back to old football rules where they were just hand passing it back and forth to each other. You know, it's almost like at times they were like, even in like, say, Kildare's instance last week, they were towards the Hogan stand, they were working the ball into there, they were trying to get space, and you know, if they had been an extra 2-3 yards outside the arc, they would have absolutely still kicked scores that they did, but they were just slightly inside. Whereas Mayo weren't creating those types of spaces. They were very cautious in a way, and it's almost like they were afraid that someone was nearly afraid to take on a two-pointer, or they're afraid that if they do try to work it into a space where someone can get a shot off, then they're just going to end up losing the ball afterwards. So that is something that they're going to have to work on. You know, I think I know you have to take every game seriously, but I think the game against Leitrim is probably the perfect opportunity to try and get two-pointers, because whatever about playing against like Sligo are still a relatively good team, and a lot of good players, and they'd be a team that you'd they'd be a team that you'd fancy to do well even in the Tailteann Cup. Whereas Leitrim have had a torrid season, and nobody expects Leitrim to beat Mayo, with all due respect, you know. So I think Mayo need to take that opportunity in the game, even if they built up a bit of a lead, to then try and kick a couple of two-pointers and see if they're actually able to, and who's able to, because otherwise they're going to get stuck in a rut, and like you said, it's going to catch them out, if not early on the season, then later on the season.
Well, that's it. I just look at who would you put at the forefront. I mean, Kerry, probably put them in the same boat as Mayo in terms of that they haven't sharpened their two-point weapon. In fact, they haven't at all. But Kerry, in my opinion, have better forwards than Mayo do in the inside line, especially David Clifford, Paddy, Johnny O'Shea. But Donegal and Galway have really sharpened those tools, and I would put them as the other two front runners for the All-Ireland. Dublin maybe is a dark horse, but I think we're in a lot of transition this year, so I'm not expecting an All-Ireland from Dublin this season. I think if we can make great headway and maybe win one next year, I think that might be a more realistic way to go about it, especially with the losses that we've had in the off-season. We have to give credit to Sligo, though. I mean, they had a rough start to the campaign in Division 3. They turned it around. They got some good wins. They did put it up to Mayo, especially going down the home straight. They really, really made it difficult for them. I think nobody will want to play Sligo because they have a lot of flair in their team. As you mentioned, players like Patrick O'Connor, players like Pat Spillane, Niall Murphy. They're really, really solid. They can really get going. What do you expect from Sligo in the rest of the campaign?
I certainly believe that they are a team who will target Tailteann Cup glory, because I reckon they're probably going to be looking back on the league thinking, we could have gone up to Division 2. We absolutely could have, you know. Like, even the first day against us, they weren't bad, really. They kind of gave away a couple of sloppy scores, and we got in for a couple of good scores as well. But like, again, we didn't even kick a two-pointer that day, you know, and they only kicked one. So, and it was also a dreadful day as well. It was a very slippery, slopey game in a way. But like, the one real surprising result that took me was the Laois game, because I just thought surely Sligo are better than Laois. But rocked up, and I mean, Laois won rather comfortably. But look, they finished the league very well. Probably still aggrieved in a way that they didn't reach the Tailteann Cup final last year. So I would absolutely give them every single chance of either winning the Tailteann Cup or at least minimum getting to a final. I think they have a lot of really good players, a lot of strong, big physical players as well. So yeah, I would give them every single chance in the world of winning a Tailteann Cup and challenging anyone. And I certainly wouldn't be surprised if next season they did begin a push again to go up to Division 2. I think they're a team that'd be well able to compete with Division 2 teams. So yeah, no, for me, I'm not 100% sure right now, but I think for them, minimum semi-final to Tailteann Cup is an absolute possibility.
Yeah, certainly. I think I'll be very interested to see how they get on. I think if you look last year, that semi-final that they played against Down, in a sense, was the final, because when Down got in through that game, they were playing against a Laois team that last year they put 8 goals past. They were roaring favourites. Laois definitely put it up to them and did themselves proud in that final, but you definitely would have made Sligo favourites had they come to that final against Down in the same sense. We have a couple of comments flying in here. Johnny Barty says Martin Carney was excellent on commentary on Midwest Radio. Certainly, I didn't listen to it, but Martin Carney is a very, very good analyst, and I did love him when he was on the Sunday game. Johnny also says I can't see Killian O'Connor coming back next year. Probably can't see it either, which would be a very big shame if he didn't get his flowers for what an amazing player he's been for Mayo. And Brian says, while I've not seen Mayo Sligo, massive credit due to Sligo. Mayo would be very concerned for them. Last week was as bad as I've seen for them. With the new rules, you need to kicking ball into your forwards with the new rules, as the 3v3 has space, and Mayo are more of a running team. They were certainly running the ball way too much in the league final last week. The 2-pointer is a weapon that they need to sharpen, in my opinion, going forward. The other Connacht football quarter-finals, London 13 points, Roscommon 226 in Ruislip. Look, this is a game Roscommon are expected to win. There's no point sugarcoating it. Anything other than a comfortable Roscommon win would have drawn headlines, and they got a very, very comfortable win. So we have to give them credit for that. Kieran Murta with 1-5, Ben O'Carroll 7 points, Enda Smith 2 points, Diarmuid Murta 1-1, Keane McKeown 3 points. Look, it's a job well done by Roscommon, but can we take that much from this game?
Certainly, you can take something from the fact that at half time there was only 3 points in it. You know, London were given a real good account of themselves. Saw something was it yesterday or this morning as well, that in 20 years' time it'll be a great pub quiz question: who scored the first 2-pointer in Championship football? And it was Liam Gallagher from London. So it was a nice moment for him, and it'll be a nice moment for London to look back on. But yeah, no, look, like you said, even though the score was close enough at halftime, you weren't really expecting any other results. Really, it's a team that's gone up to Division 1 against a team who, you know, finished, was it 5th or 6th in Division 4. So yeah, realistically, Roscommon, they got the job done. They have bigger fish to fry against Galway in a couple of weeks' time in the Connacht semi-final. And look, they're gonna try and give a good account of themselves. Galway right now. Galway. It's a job.
No, we've lost you, Liam.
Which can never come back. Sorry. Can you now?
Yeah. So, look, it's a good. I'll wrap up on this game. No, you're back with me. Good stuff. I'll just wrap up on this game. It was a good win for Roscommon, but it was one that they were expected to win. And they're going into the next round of the championship, where they'll likely play Galway. But I mean, right now in this game, if you are not watching it, it's actually well worth watching, because as I speak right now in this moment at 8:36, it's Galway 1 goal and 8 points. It's New York 7 points. So it's by no means an easy game for Galway. The goal for Galway has come from Matthew Tierney. No Shane Walsh playing. Rob Finnerty is the biggest name in the Galway forward line, apart from Killian McDade at centre forward. So for New York, the most recognisable name I can see is Cian O'Dea at cornerback. But for Galway, 1-8 to 7 points. It's not looking like an easy game. So if you get a chance, it would be well worth to pay some attention to this game and see how it finishes. I might regret not doing the podcast at 9:30 tonight, because by God, if New York pull off a result there, it will be carnage. Moving then over to the east, to our province, Liam. Starting with this one, Meath won 30, Carlow 19 points. I mean, as you mentioned, not only now is 19 points not enough to win a game, 19 points, you'll probably still get battered. Carlow were coming into this game fresh off the back of losing Shane Curran as their manager, so it was basically disastrous circumstances coming into the start of the championship. And they were coming up against a Meath team who had performed really, really well in the league, albeit they had just lost two of their backroom team heading into this game. But Meath still got the win, 130 to 19 points. It's a good start for the Royals, but again, we do have to factor in it was a Carlow team, a Division 4 team, in disarray following the departure of Shane Curran.
Yeah, absolutely. Meath, again, don't think they had to really get out of second gear. They were very, very comfortable throughout this game. Yeah, look, Meath, I said it during the week, Meath had their problems, of course, losing the two coaches, but Carlow's problems are way, way bigger, and the revolts they've had around the players just has not helped them in the slightest. So, and like you said, it's a Carlow team that had the literal definition of a average Division 4 season. You know, winning 3, drawing 1, losing 3. You know, against a Meath team who, like, realistically would be kicking themselves that they haven't gone up to Division 1 with some of the defeats they had, particularly the loud one when you consider Roscommon drew with Westmeath. So, yeah, no, for Meath, you know, business as usual. Again, I suppose comfortable enough performance in the end. Rory Kinsella getting their goal, which, I mean, the game was kind of done at that stage anyways, but sure, it's always nice to get a goal, isn't it? So, yeah, like, I mean, leading 22 points to 5 at halftime. I mean, Carlow just were never at the races at all. It's always difficult going up to Navan, to be fair, but they were just never at the races. I'd say they weren't looking forward to this game at all with all the problems that they have off the pitch. And I mean, you factor in as well, Meath didn't even have Jordan Morris for this game. You know, so you can only imagine what he could have done to them if he was fit and playing. So, but no, Magic Costello played, had a good game. Jack Flynn, Owen Frayne. So, yeah, no, it's Rory Kinsella, like mentioned. So, yeah, no, it's a good performance for Meath. I do think they'll get a bit of a tougher challenge against Offaly next weekend. Now they have home advantage again, which is crucial to them. But I think they'll certainly want to even up their performance as well, because, you know, in a way, a game like this doesn't help them because it was very comfortable. They probably could have done with a tough, you know, back and forth sort of a game. If they had a Westmeath or at least, or even a Wexford, you know, I know they're Division 4 as well, but even Wexford, with the way they've gone this year, I think would have been a much more stern test for them in a way. But yeah, but look, you can only play what's in front of you. They'll take a lot of positives from it. Scoring 130 is impressive, regardless of who you're playing. So yeah, no, they'll move on to next weekend, and I hope they don't beat us.
I do think Offaly Meath will be one of the games of that weekend. I really, really think Offaly's young guns against Meath will be really, really interesting to see how it matches up. Another really cool stat for Meath in this game is from number 7, Kieran Caulfield, right up to number 15, Owen Frayne. All of them got on the score sheet. Jack Flynn, 3 points. Brian Menton, 1 point. Connor Duke, 2. Rory Kinsella, 1-5. Number 20, Jack Kinlock, who started late with 2 points. Keith Curtis, 2 points. Matthew Costello, 4 points. And Owen Frayne in the corner then with 7. A wide spread of scorers for Meath, showcasing the talent that they have in their side. And with Jordan Morris still to come back in, but we're not 100% sure when, they are looking in good nick, to be fair. Brian says here, remember New York beat Leitrim? How could I forget? That was one of the most chaotic weekends of the GA year last year, history making. The other two games that took place in round 1 of the Leinster Championship, we had Wicklow beating Longford by 223 to 120 at Pearse Park, and also Laois beating Wexford by 211 to Wexford to 221 of Laois in Wexford Park. Two teams who played in Division 4, losing on the opening round of the championship. For Laois, it's a very, very impressive win away at a team who went 7 for 7, apart from obviously then losing the league final in the Division 4 final. Laois looked solid in Division 3 and ultimately showcased that with a very impressive win over a team that will be playing in the same division as them next season.
Yeah, and I feel stupid now for saying that I thought Wexford would win this game. So, That's not a good. I've had a few howlers this year. I think I said Westmeath would
That's
beat
not the
Antrim.
that's not the Laois Offaly bias coming in, is it?
It wasn't even the bias. I just felt that Laois, sort of just the way they kind of threw games away in Division 3, and I felt the way Wexford played in Division 4, that I thought maybe, and having home advantage as well, I certainly thought Wexford would put up a better battle. Look, Laois have a lot of really good footballers. I mean, Mark Barry is one of the best footballers in Leinster. He's a terrific player. So he's, and but at the same time, look, Wexford have not had a great record against Laois over the last number of years. I believe it's since 2008 since they last bet them. I think that's the last time they bet them. So, yeah, no, I certainly got that one wrong anyway. But no, look, full credit to Laois. They had an okay league campaign. Picked up some good wins here and there. Probably some performances that they'd be disappointed with. But look, they've progressed, and they'll be delighted with that. They're on the opposite side of Dublin, so they might even think to themselves, they could sneak their way into a Leinster final. I mean, they bet Kildare last year and they got to the Tailteann Cup final, so why not? But no, like I mentioned the names like Mark Barry, scoring 7 points, Coffey in corner forward, Ronan Coffey scoring 6 points, and Daniel O'Reilly scoring a goal. So yeah, no, look, and you have to give credit as well to Paul Curran scoring 3 points from wing back as well. Terrific scoreline, especially whatever about scoring 3 points from wing back in hurling in football. It's very, very impressive. So yeah, no, look, fair play to them. They're into the next round. They were convincing over Wexford. Wexford never really got going. There wasn't a huge attendance down on Wexford Park either, which is probably a bit of a shame considering how well the footballers did do to get back up, and probably will feel that they will have regrets about not winning the final against Limerick. In fairness to Josh Ryan, goes for Limerick, he pulled off some massive saves, which essentially kept Limerick in the game. But yeah, look, it's a disappointing result for Wexford anyway. But yeah, no, look, fair play to Laois. They'll certainly fancy their chances in the quarterfinals. And but yeah, no, don't worry. There's not much Offaly Laois bias. There's some, but because I did reference that I couldn't live with myself if Laois went up to Division 2 and we didn't. But I don't have to worry about that now. But no, look, fair play to them. They'll fancy their chances in the quarterfinal.
Certainly, it's a very, very good win over a Wexford team who looked the business in Division 4 this season. And then moving on to the last game which took place in Leinster across this weekend, Wicklow going away to Pearse Park in Longford. And even though Longford scored 120, Wicklow scored 223, again showcasing just how good these new rules have been to the game. Last season, let's be honest, this game would have finished something like 12 points to Longford, 112 to Wicklow, or something along them lines. In this game, Ushie McGregor with 7 points, Pargo 2 at 1-1, and Kevin Quinn at full forward with 1-5. They were the heavy hitters for Wicklow. It's a big, big win for them. For Longford, they had, again, pretty bang average Division 4 campaign, followed up by defeat at home to Wicklow in the first round of the championship. Look, the reality is the O'Byrne Cup wins that they had under Paddy Christie, etc. I feel like that kind of glossed over for Longford. The reality is the standard of players that they have, in my opinion, from when they had the Paul Bardens, the Shawnee McCormicks, the Mickey Quinns, it has fallen off a bit. And they just are where they are. And I think they need the young lads like Oren Kenny and that crop to come through. You look at players like Owen McGuinness, who was in the DCU team in the Sigerson, like in goals, and players like that. I think it's waiting for a new generation of Longford talent to come along and lift this team up, because I think what they have right now is saying to me that you change the managers all you want, they're not getting out of Division 4, and they failed to get out a few times. And you look at the teams that have been relegated. Yes, Leitrim, I think, will be stuck there, but like Wicklow are going to be raring to get out next year, and I think Antrim will probably bounce straight back up. So they've got their work cut out.
Yeah, they do, absolutely. Like looking at that Longford team last year that won the Leinster Minor Football Championship, and some of the football they played as well, it was actually delightful to watch. That final that they played against Dublin in O'Connor Park, I was really, really enjoying it. They were played on the front foot. There was no fear about them. They do need a good crop of those lads coming through. Look, you're not going to get all 15. That's not realistically going to happen. But you do need a number of them to come through, because otherwise, like especially at home, if you're losing your home games in the Leinster Championship, especially against a fellow, Division 4 team, it's not a good look. Now, look, Wicklow were a team that were pushing for promotion. Oisin McConville will just be, I'd say, delighted tonight and relieved to just get out of there with a victory and onto the next round. But yeah, for Longford, it's it's a long road back. Those wins they had in the O'Byrne Cups really kind of glossed probably a lot of issues that. No, it's a long way back for Longford. I'm probably a bit surprised that Wicklow maybe didn't win it in normal time. I didn't see it going to extra time, but look, credit to them, they brought them to extra time, and but no, it's a great win for Wicklow.
It certainly is, especially away in Pearse Park, which always has the added kind of aura of being a notoriously difficult place to go. The most poignant memory I have of that is Mayo going down there in 2010 and losing to Longford by a point. Johnny McCormack got the goal that day, and I remember that being a huge shock because Mayo were the Connacht champions in 2009, and people didn't expect them to go out the way that they did in Longford. But Longford can be a very difficult place to go. So for Wicklow to go there and win in round one of the Leinster Championship is a very, very impressive thing to do. The Munster Senior Football Championship quarterfinals, then the final province of action in Gaelic football. Starting off with Limerick against Cork at the Gaelic grounds. Cork pulling off an 11-point victory over their local rivals. It's a good start for the Rebels to the championship. It is again a win that they were expected to get. Nonetheless, they still had to go away to the Gaelic grounds and win, which they did.
Yeah, comfortable enough for them. I like the look of the Cork full forward line. Brian Hurley, Mark Cronin, Chris O'Jones. They really put it up to them. Brian O'Driscoll had a couple of 2-pointers to start the game as well. So, yeah, no, I think Cork I think Cleary will be just delighted to get out of there with a positive start in the championship, especially with Kerry on the horizon now. Limerick at home, I think, especially after that Division 4 final, will be relatively disappointed with how they did perform because, in a way, I don't feel Limerick would have feared Cork at home, but at the same time, Cork just do have that bit of quality that can hurt you when they are given the chance, despite some of their defensive frailties that they did have in the league. So, no, look, I don't expect Cork to take down Kerry. I absolutely don't. But it's good for them to get a win on the board and into the semi-finals against Kerry. And look, I believe the game's in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, I believe. So look, they'll hopefully bring a big crowd. I don't expect them to bring the same type of crowd that the hurlers are bringing in at the moment. But if they can bring in some bit of a crowd, and you'll always get one against Kerry as well. And listen, they always put up some bit of a fight against Kerry as well. They seem to always sort of raise their game for Kerry, no matter where it is and what occasion it is. But Sean Clancy's yellow card, is second yellow as well for Limerick, didn't really help matters either. So it's they now have to wait 5 weeks as well now, I believe, until they play in the Tailteann Cup, which is a long wait. So yeah, they'll want to get back onto the training ground and sort things out fairly quickly, because 5 weeks without action is a very, very long time. So yeah, no, but convincing enough for Cork.
Yeah, no, certainly. Our good friend Matthew Hurley here, the Gaelic Sussman, has thrown in his comments here. He says, red card after 24 minutes from Sean Clancy killed the game. Wasn't the best game for prep for Kerry for Cork. Certainly, I think a relatively comfortable victory probably isn't the preparation that you would want heading into what is going to be an almighty test against Kerry. As Matthew well points out here, new rules against Kerry. Hopefully we can provide a shock, but we need our fans to back the team. And when Matthew was on the pod, we were talking about the exodus of fans from when the hurlers played first and the footballers were on next, and fans were turning around and walking out of the ground. They need fans to get behind this Cork team because they have the talent. They have players like Chris O'Jones. They have players like Colin O'Callaghan. They have, the backing of All Ireland under 20 success over the last 5 years. So it's there for Cork. They can build a very successful team, and they need the fans to back them the same way that they're backing the hurlers. To be honest, every county needs that. And we'll get to the hurling final in a second. But the last game in the football was Tipperary beating Waterford 122-119 in Semple Stadium. It's a very high-scoring game, and it just proves again how good Gaelic football has been, because two very respectable tallies put up here by two teams who did play in Division 4. It's just a much better game. I don't care what anyone says. It's a much better game to watch. Tipperary coming out on the right side against a team that beat them last season. So for the Premier, it's a good start to their Munster campaign to get over the line in this one.
Yeah, and especially, like you mentioned there, the defeat that they suffered against them last year, it was much needed. I think now the direction the Tip have been on since, I suppose, kind of like Mayo with their defeat to Tyrone Tipperary, since that Munster title success in 2020, have not been the same since. Now I know they've lost a number of players through retirement, the likes of Conor Sweeney and Philip Austin, etc., and Quillivan is there at the moment, but they've just been very poor over the last couple of years, and kind of like the Cork footballers as well. Support has kind of gone down as well. They've been failing to get out of Division 4 as well, which doesn't help them. So they kind of just needed this victory last night to just, keep the ship sailing away. And look, they'll be going up against Clare, which I don't think they'll fear Clare all too much. I think Clare will probably beat them, but there certainly isn't anything for Tipperary to fear. Like, they were comfortable in this game. Like, they were leading 18 to 11 points at one stage. Waterford staged a bit of a late comeback. James Power got a nice 2-pointer. Conor Murray got a 2-pointer. James Walsh got a 2-pointer towards the end. Kind of made it somewhat interesting. But overall, they were comfortable. It's just they probably fell asleep a bit at the wheel. I suppose when you go 10 points up and there's a couple of minutes to go, you can start to get a bit quiet. You can fall asleep in a way. So, but look, it's a much needed win for them. They'll take positives from it as well. Darragh Brennan scoring 3 points. Stephen O'Brien scored 1-8. He had a really, really positive performance. Michael Freeney scored 4 points. So, for Philly Ryan, I think he'll take the positives from it. They'll have some work to do in the defence, but overall, a good win for them in the end. And they'll look forward to Clare in the semi-finals.
You certainly will. And there's a really realistic chance there for Tipperary to play Sam Maguire football. So that's something that should not be scoffed at, the opportunity that they have in front of them. But that, anyway, is the football wrapped up. Guys, we have a good few people watching. So if you have any final thoughts on the football, anything that you would like to throw in before the episode wraps up, just throw it in the live chat there and I will get to it. We're going to switch over to the hurling. Then we had the 2 Allianz Hurling League Finals. We had no Camogie, no LGFA this weekend. But we have, of course, the 1A hurling final and the 1B hurling final. Both were shown live on TG Car today. If you didn't see them, they're available on the player. But starting off with the Division 1A final, Cork 324, Tipperary 23 points at Porky Queeve. Cork win their first Allianz Hurling League title since 1998 by 10 points, beating local rivals Tipperary. Alan Connolly with 1-2, Patrick Horgan with 7 points, Dara Fitzgibbon with 1-4. Very, very strong performance by the Rebels.
Yeah, I have to say, Cork played like All-Ireland contenders today. Tipperary played like, I suppose, pretenders, best way to sum it up. The game was essentially wrapped up by half-time. The atmosphere before it was fantastic, before the 1A final anyways. I'll get on to the 1B final in a while. But yeah, it was a fantastic atmosphere. It was a sellout, huge noise all around the place. And yeah, I suppose every score, especially early on, was impactful anyways from the supporters. And Tipperary were competitive early on. It was I believe it got to like 8-7 or 8-all at some stage, and then Cork just kicked into another gear altogether. The goal that Alan Connolly got was a brilliant goal. It was well worked. I have to say, I was at the game, but I was really, really impressed with the likes of Tim O'Mahony. He's just a big physical presence in the middle of the field. Darragh Fitzgibbon he was named at centre forward, but he's operating in around the half forward line at times. It looked like at times he was even going into corner forward. He's just a player that can play in any position, and I've said it for years. If there was a transfer market in hurling, the one Cork player I would take is Darragh Fitzgibbon. I just think he's absolutely excellent to watch. He's super. And yeah, look, Patrick Horgan was playing like someone who's 25 rather than 37. So, you have to give him great credit for that as well. Ethan Toomey, I thought, had a solid game in midfield as well. Rob Downey at centre back. Kieran Joyce had a solid game at wing back as well. He just looks like a proper defender, just big, strong, physical. He's able to deliver a ball. I was surprised that Brian Hayes played, considering he was listed to be injured. So I got a massive shock when I saw him starting. And at times he looked like he was still nursing his injury. I don't know whether actually playing him was maybe the smartest move, but at the same time, look, he still moved around a good bit. He was still doing a good bit of movement, got a nice score in the second half as well. So I suppose, what do we know? But yeah, Cork's panel, their strength and depth, everything today just looked, their position, the poke outs from Collins, they were just finding his man every single time. They were just dead accurate into the paw, laid off over the bar. It was Dermot Healy as well, as a lad who I said the other night on Matthew's podcast I'd love to see given a chance in a league final, because I think he's a terrific player. He's big, he's strong, he's fast, he knows where the goals are, certainly. And yeah, he got two or maybe three fantastic scores in the first half, especially from difficult angles as well. So yeah, no, Cork were simply awesome. Second half was kind of died down a bit in a small way, just because I feel like it was a bit subdued. I suppose the fans sort of knew that Cork had it won. Tip would have needed a mountain to get back into the game, and they just could never do it. I would worry now, is this another case of Liam Cahill syndrome, in which are Tip now going to falter going into the championship, especially with Limerick on the horizon in 2 weeks' time? He was like the likes of Darren McCarthy, like he was very quiet today. Sean O'Donoghue did a great job on him. Niall O'Leary was solid there as well, but McCarthy just never really got a sniff at it, really. Jake Morris kind of came into the game at times in the second half, but in the first half it wasn't working for him. Like, he wasn't afraid to make subs either. Willie Connors was taken off after 22 minutes. Dara Stakelum, ironically, was on 5 minutes and he had 2 points on the board. Jason Ford got a marvellous score out the corner, but after that it just wasn't working for him. So even Tip's defence at times, they were kind of playing balls up to the forward line, which they were just never ever going to work. There was a real kind of lack of movement at times for them. I was a bit disappointed by them, but yeah, no, look, take nothing away from Cork. They're certainly the team at the moment that you'd be looking at saying they're probably favourites for the All-Ireland. Even watching them today, if they were playing against Limerick, I would have backed Cork to win that game. So, and they look hungry. They really wanted to end that drought of, like, it's been 7 years since they've won anything. They won Munster in 2018, and like you said, they haven't won a league in the 21st century. So they just look like they almost it's almost like Armagh last year with the football, or maybe Tyrone in 2021, or even to a degree. Like, I would say, I'd even compare them to the Galway team of 2017 that blitzed the league, blitzed Leinster, and ultimately were the best side in Ireland in 2017. Probably, arguably, even in 2018, I would say they were still probably the best team in Ireland despite losing to Limerick in the finals. So, yeah, no, for me, Cork at the moment are the outright favourites to win the All-Ireland. And as things speak, if you were to say to me who's going to win the All-Ireland, I would have to say with the Rebel County.
Yeah, did you know what? I would say the same. Right now, I genuinely am. I'm believing in the hype. I genuinely am. Brian says here, a very big statement and excellent performance from Cork. Very dangerous forwards. The pace of the Cork forwards caused Tip major problems. The lack of pace in the Tip backline is very concerning. Tip were very competitive until the Cork first goal. My heart goes out to Barry Hogan. Got no protection at all. The reality is, right now, Cork, there's a special energy around them. Their fans are so engaged in what is going on. The way that the league final sold out so rapidly, the way that the Cork fans travelled to Páirc Uí Chaoimh for the Limerick game last year when their lives were on the line in the Munster Championship. They needed the fans to get behind them. The fans got behind them, and now they feel like they're really involved in this move towards finally capturing Liam McCarthy for the first time since 2005. The way that the Cork fans travelled to Semple Stadium for the Tipperary game in the Munster Championship, the way they travelled for the All-Ireland semi-final against Limerick, who, along with the excellent Limerick fans, sold out Croke Park for the All-Ireland semi-final. In the All-Ireland final, look, they lost it, but you play that game 10 times. I think Clare win it 5 times and Cork win it 5 times. They were so evenly matched. And if that shot from Robbie O'Flynn goes in past Eibhear Quilligan at the end, if Quilligan doesn't make that amazing save, Cork win the All-Ireland, in my opinion. So, genuinely, they say you have to lose a final to win one. And Cork right now are giving the energy of a team that are not getting deflated by that All-Ireland final defeat last season, but are using that as fuel to power them towards a potential All-Ireland title in 2025. And Galway was a good example. We've seen teams in the past who have been knocking on the door, and then suddenly it's just their year. It's their time. For Tipperary, I wouldn't be too disheartened, because they have an incredible factory line of talent coming through, the likes of Darren McCarthy, Dara Stakelum, Oisin O'Donoghue. But the reality is, I think Cork's time is now. I think Tipperary's time is 2 or 3 years down the line, whereas Cork's time, in my opinion, is now. And I think they have to take advantage of what they have in front of them right now. Annette Hennessy says, who's going to win Cork versus Clare? Right now, I'd say Cork. They just put 6 goals past them in the league, and who knows? Where's Liam White driving from? Do you want to answer that yourself, Liam?
Well,
the car is flying like a rocket, says it.
Well, don't worry, I'm not the one driving, so I'm not breaking any laws. No, I was I didn't have a ticket for the league final Tuesday evening, and then I just heard Wednesday morning that there was one available, so managed to get one. And sure, we said, you know what, we'll make the road trip down. I was in I was in Loud yesterday for our minor hurlers. I'll be in Ballinasloe Tuesday to watch our under-20s, and then I have some media awards thing with my journalism course group in Dublin Wednesday, and then it's Limerick Race Day Thursday. Don't have a ticket, and you know what? I'll happily do taxi that day instead. So it's a life on the road, but you know what? And in Crow Park last weekend, but you know what? You could be at worse things. So,
Yeah.
and
No, I've experienced that life on the road, man, more than you can imagine. And I'd say, the diet goes out the window. Let's just put it that way. You're basically eating any food that you can get your hands on. Johnny says it's like the Batmobile in. Brian O'Riordan says here, Cork will definitely be favourites for the All-Ireland. There's a hunger about them, and they only have one thought, and that is to go for goal. Tip of serious talent coming through. They had a brilliant league, and I'd expect them to get out of Munster. I'd probably give them a very good chance. I think if they're going to catch anybody, I think it's Clare. I think there's a hint that Clare's hunger has dropped off, the relegation in the league. But right now, I probably would say that Cork, Limerick and Clare will get out of Munster in no particular order. But I think those are the three that will probably get out. And lastly, sorry to bring this up, but you did lose today. But Waterford 127, Offaly 220 at Porky Creve. The Division 1B final. Look, man, even though Waterford won this game, you lost by 4 points. It's not a big defeat at all in hurling. In my opinion, even though Offaly lost, Waterford had to do a lot to get over the line, and it's showing that you are at this level now. The level of Offaly hurling has increased to the point where even when teams win, they have to work for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, there's no point sugarcoating it either. The first half, we were 17-6 down at half time. We had 3 points from play. It was a very, very poor performance. We were we started off very poorly. We were giving scores away very easily, trying to work the ball out from the back. They were pressing a lot of our poke outs. We weren't maybe pressing theirs as hard. And look, they kind of had the game wrapped up. People would say by halftime. I would say probably by the 50th minute, they were 23 points to 9 up. So you could argue that they were pretty much hum and hose. And then just out of nowhere, a shot came in, hit the post. Billy Nolan looked like he was nearly heading for the exit for Páirc Uí Chaoimh, never mind going to pick up a ball. Comes off the post, and Oisin Kelly was there to pounce. Ball was in the back of the net. It was probably the biggest cheer we got all day at that moment anyway. Just something to smile about. But they then ran up the other end and they managed to get themselves a goal. It was a mad couple of minutes anyways. I believe it was Jack Curran that got the goal for Waterford, which all but kind of sealed the game again. And then Oisin Kelly pounces to get another goal, and all of a sudden Offaly ran them close in the end. Like you said, if we had kind of played, I suppose, the last 10, 15, 20 minutes like we did the opening 45, 50 minutes, then who knows what could have happened, because like Jamie Barron was nearly able to do whatever he wanted in midfield. Desi Hutchinson was scoring his frees, which you'd expect. He's a top class free taker. So yeah, no, it was just looking like a hammering for a long time. But I got to give credit to Offaly. In years gone by, it would have gotten worse. I remember in 2017 we conceded 135 to Waterford, we conceded 33 points to Galway. We've conceded 632 and to Kilkenny in the past, and 525s to Tipperary's. I think 224s to Dublin. So to see them fight back the way they did. Brian Dignan had a massive last 15-20 minutes. Owen Cahill was back on the pitch, which was good for us as well. Picked off a good score. Oisin Kelly was a constant threat as well, both in the air, and he's a big physical presence as well. So trying to, drive past the Waterford defence as well. So yeah, no, look, there certainly were positives to take from the game. We got a bit excited towards the end, thinking, could we nick this? It'd be the greatest comeback since Istanbul, but just wasn't to be. And look, I'm happy enough that we come away and we put a respectable scoreline on it. We had a lot of injuries as well, a lot of players out, which is a factor in this as well. So, and a couple of lads that were playing today that'll be playing under 20 Tuesday night. Páirc Cantwell was only back after injury. The last time he played was against Antrim in round 3. So it was a tough game to throw him back into. But I suppose with James Mahon's suspension, we were kind of down to the bare minimum, really, the bare bones. So, but yeah, no, look, Dublin, the game against Dublin in 2 weeks' time will be the most important game for us. We'll be looking to try and pick up a result there, which will be tough. But certainly given the way back at the end and put a respectable scoreline on it. And considering we've secured promotion back to Division 1A, I'm happy enough with how the league has turned out for us.
Yeah, certainly. It's been a fantastic league for Offaly. Getting promoted, because at the start, Dublin and Waterford were the two favourites to get promoted. That win over Dublin and Croke Park was massive in terms of that pretty much sealed that you were going up. And to put it up to Waterford, even though you came out the wrong side of the result and you just had a bad first half, you fought back into the game. And the reality is, where you are right now, nobody in Leinster is going to be looking forward to that game, because it is not a walkover like it has been for the Kilkennys and the Galways against the team that's got promoted from the John McDonough. It's not going to be that way this season at all, in my opinion. The proud heritage, the proud history that Offaly Hurling have, they can tap into that. And yeah, it's going to be a very, very difficult test for everybody. Brian says Clare seem to have gone back since last year's All-Ireland and have been relegated. They don't seem to have the same hunger. But Annette asked here, do you think Clare will get out of Munster? Actually, yes, I do. I think that they will get out of Munster in third place. I think if they're not going to, I think Tip will take their place. But I probably would still shade it to Clare at this moment in time. Johnny Barrett says we need a first ever Cork Limerick All-Ireland final. Could you imagine that? It's just Cork Limerick All-Ireland hurling final, please. And then Brian says the last time the Leinster Championship quarter and semi-finals were outside Croke Park, and we know won the All-Ireland. Remember J.O.'s bootless goal in Navan? Of course, that was the summer of 95. Who could forget J.O.'s goal? So Waterford winning the Division 1B title. Massive congratulations to the Dacia. Massive congratulations to the Rebels as well on winning the Division 1A hurling title. That is the first weekend review show of the Championship 2025. Massive thank you to Liam White for jumping on, even though you're in the Batmobile on the way home. Massive thank you as well to Brian O'Riordan, to Johnny Barrett, to Annette Hennessy, to as well, going to make sure I get everybody, to Gaelic Statsman, Matthew Hurley, my good friend, to Zio Zakul, all the way from Mexico. Big shout out to him as well. Massive shout out to Sam McGowan as well. Rudders38. Anybody who contributed to the episode, who paid attention, who watched, who commented, who liked, anything like that, you helped make the episode what it was. And there will be one coming every single weekend throughout the Championship of 2025. So get involved in the discussion, get involved in the comments. I look forward to seeing you all back here next weekend, live at 8 p.m. Sunday evening. We'll see you all there. Until then, have a good week. Enjoy League Sunday starting at 9:30. Agus Torah.